Well, first of all, doing business is fine, but doing business by holding a gun at your head is not acceptable. Not to China, probably not to everyone else. But for China, you cannot hold a gun to China's head and issue ultimatum and demand all the impossibilities, for example, and ask China to swallow that. China is the country that values dignity and decency and honor more than economic gains or economic losses. So if you want to hold a gun at China's head, China will hold a gun at your head. If you want to strike China in the cheek, China will strike you back. That's the decision and the determination of the Chinese nation. This is not belligerency. This is the minimum decency you need to apply to international relations. How can you demand other countries, I will slap you in the face, don't slap me back, otherwise I will punish you more. That's the law of the jungle.
But does China really have the power to be that sort of bold against the US? They have a much bigger defense budget.
Let me assure you one thing. I studied arms control and deterrence at Yale Graduate School, Political Science Department. By today, China and the United States can both destroy each other and cause Armageddon for mankind. China wants to pursue peace. The United States is advocating for war, tariff war, trade war, technology war, talent war, and possibly a perverse version of the proxy war or Cold War or hot war. China wants to promote peace of all kinds. Now, for your benefit, China is the largest trading partner with more than 140 countries in the world. Can you believe it? We've dealt with countries of all kinds, different sizes, different conditions, and we treat them equal, big or small.
Vice President J.D. Vance recently said, to make it a little more crystal clear, I'm quoting here, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. So it's maybe not a declaration of war, but it's certainly not a show of respect to another global leader. Is this how a world superpower should behave?
Well, J.D. Vance and I went to the same law school, Yale Law School. I was 20 years ahead of him. I'm ashamed by what J.D. Vance said, because he kept talking about the Chinese peasants, etc. Let me make the simple point. The urban population in China is about 3 times as big as the total population in the United States. The middle class in China is more than the total number of the people in the United States. So if J.D. Vance comes to China, he could barely find a peasant at all. If you want to impose war on China, you get war. If you want to destroy China, you get destroyed. If you want to bomb China out with nuclear weapons, you will be wiped out with nuclear weapons.
China is today supporting Russian aggression in Ukraine.
I would not be surprised if there are Chinese nationals fighting either on the Russian side of the war or on the Ukrainian side of the war. This is natural. There are lots of mercenaries, one kind of another, fighting on one side of the war or the other side of the war. If you go to Kyiv, you see national flags of almost 100 countries honoring the dead soldiers killed in the battle. So let's be honest, let's be realistic. We're talking about a war. And you are talking about 1.4 billion people in China. Some love Russia, some love Ukraine. And if, as the American panelist, with due respect, said, if China is really involved in the war, supporting Russia, the war will be over immediately, because no one can fight against the military might of China if China supports the military operations by Russia.
地大面脑力的好。